Hi everyone, Purple Celery here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing episode 7 of series 12 of Doctor Who, Can You Hear Me? So let me start by saying that I'm not sure how I really feel about this episode. It was definitely one of the most creepiest and surreal episodes of Doctor Who that we've seen for quite some time. Parts of it had a certain dreamlike quality that we've seen in some other episodes, such as the 1960s serial The Celestial Toymaker, and more modern episodes such as Amy's Choice and Listen. This episode was ostensibly a Monster of the Week story, with the monsters being two very cruel, immortal, godlike beings, but at its heart there was a message about mental health. So what I might do is I might start by firstly talking about the things that I didn't quite like about this episode, and then move on to the things that I did like about this episode. So the first thing that didn't quite work for me in this episode was the plot. I just felt like the plot was a bit all over the place. So it started off in Aleppo, Syria, about 700 years ago, and we meet the young girl who works at the hospital. We know that she's having nightmares, or she's like seeing this monster-like being that's like stalking the hospital. It was just like a bit random, and when you think about it, it didn't really add that much to the plot, apart from how the monster was used at the end to overcome the two villains. It just left me thinking, you know, why Aleppo, Syria of 700 years ago? Why this character? I felt like I didn't really get to properly know who this young girl was. She was a bit underutilised, so that aspect didn't quite work for me. I also thought that the whole villain aspect was resolved quite quickly. Long story short, the Doctor just waves her sonic screwdriver around and she uses the villain's globe-like device against them, and then, you know, bang, it's all over and everything's been resolved. Another thing that didn't quite work for me was the pacing. I thought the pacing of this episode was all over the place. Some parts of it felt quite rushed, like the resolution that I just talked about. And then we were treated to like the last 10-15 minutes of this like slow, drawn-out denouement, where the companions or their mates sort of like resolve their mental health issues. So yeah, the pacing personally just didn't quite work for me. So on to the things that I did enjoy about this episode. I did enjoy the creepy vibe of it. The whole finger in the ear thing was simple, but it was very effective. This definitely wasn't an episode that you'd want to show to a young child. As I said, there were quite a few creepy horror elements in it, so I think that they were quite effective. I also liked in this episode how we saw some more of the companions' home lives. In particular, we got some character development for Yaz, which I thought was great. So it was interesting to see how, like, only 3 years ago she was quite a troubled teenager, and now she's obviously like a, you know, high achieving probationary constable in the police force. So yeah, that was a good thing for me. I also liked how we saw a bit more of the Doctor's character. In some ways, I think that this incarnation of the Doctor is very closed off, and when you think about it, she's not actually very affectionate. Like, behind her bubbly exterior, she's quite reserved in some ways. I mean, I don't think that we've actually seen this Doctor give any of her companions like a hug or anything, and this was seen quite acutely in the scene towards the end where Graham is talking about his fears about how his nightmare was about his cancer coming back, and the Doctor was sort of, you know, her body language was sort of quite closed off, like she had her arms folded. She couldn't really think of anything reassuring to say to Graham. Having said that, though, it was clear that she was listening to what Graham was saying, so at least that was something. Which brings me on to the next thing that I liked about this episode. I liked the title, Can You Hear Me, and the whole symbolism of this episode. So as I said, at the heart, this episode was all about mental health. And I guess in particular, if you have depression, feeling that like you're alone and that no one's listening to you. And so I did enjoy the whole symbolism of the finger in the ears, I guess, some symbolising that you were closed off and that like nobody was listening to you and that you weren't being heard. And it was interesting how at the end of the episode, the companions or their friends in Ryan's case were able to work through their issues by talking to people, and I guess feeling as though other people were listening to them, which I thought was a really good thing. Oh, one more thing about the Doctor that I just thought of. She's quite a contradictory character in some ways, because at the start of the episode she was always prepared just to jump forward in time to pick them up tomorrow at lunchtime. It was clear that she didn't really want to be by herself for an extended period. But at the same time, when she went back in time to Aleppo, Syria, she was talking to us, to the companions, and she'd almost forgotten that they weren't actually there with her. So in some ways, she's quite a needy doctor, but in other ways, she almost, I guess, treats her companions as being accessories, and half the time seems to forget that they're even there. So moving on, this episode also raised some mysteries, such as what exactly were Yaz and her sister Sonia acknowledging? What was the anniversary? It seemed to be something sad and personal. I was thinking maybe their grandma died, the one who featured in Demons of the Punjab, and they were, I guess, acknowledging the anniversary of her death. So yeah, maybe that'll be explained in future episodes. We also saw a brief appearance of the Timeless Child. To me, it does look like a young girl. I'm thinking maybe it's like the Ruth Doctor as a child. So yeah, again, that's quite intriguing. This wasn't a mystery, but it was more of a development, I suppose, with the companions. For the first time we see them, and specifically Ryan, expressing some real doubts as to how long they can keep on travelling with the Doctor, especially as they're getting older and they're seeing new things and they're changing and developing, but the people that they love back on Earth are essentially staying the same. It seems like this is something that like most companions eventually do have to deal with. Ranging right back from Ian and Barbara in the 1960s through to people like Rory and Amy in the modern day. So yeah, again, it'll be interesting to see whether the companions want to keep on travelling with the Doctor at the end of this series. Overall, I felt this episode was trying to be a lot of things. It was trying to be like a creepy horror monster of the week episode. It was trying to be a slower domestic drama. And it was also trying to convey an important social message about mental health. But I just felt, for me, in trying to be all of those things, it just fell a bit short for me. So I'd probably give this episode about 7 out of 10. I just felt that it was just a little bit jumbled up. But once again, these are just my views. I would love to hear your thoughts. So please leave them in the comments section below. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'm quite looking forward to the Frankenstein episode next week. It looks like maybe we'll be meeting Mary Shelley and her husband and circle of friends. So yeah, looking forward to that one. In the meantime, this is Purple Celery saying goodbye. Thank you so much for watching.